We're good. I take it. So hello everyone and welcome to the Oneida Energy Storage presentation. So what is the Oneida Energy Storage? The Oneida Energy Storage Project, or the OES project, you'll see it referred to in the PowerPoint, is a 250 megawatt or 1,000 megawatt per hour battery storage facility. We are tentatively having this located in Jarvis, Ontario, in Haldimand County. This project is done in partnership with Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation and EnerStore. And most recently, we've received a memorandum of understanding for some due diligence and financial review from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. I'll get into a little bit more details about the roles of each of those later in the presentation. But as a quick summary, what Oneida Energy Storage is it has the ability to provide important grid balancing services to the independent electric systems operator. So that's important because the customer for this project is actually the IESO. And I'm going to get into a little bit more detail about that as well. So just an overview of our presentation today. Like I said, it would be about 15 to 20 minutes, and then there'll be an option for questions and answers at the end. So we're going to go over quickly, where can we get some more information? There's a lot of complex data in this presentation, and we want to make sure you guys can follow along. So we'll show you where you can grab some of the information I'm referring to. Also, in order to explain and understand the Oneida Energy Park, we really have to explain how energy currently works in Ontario. So we're going to go over battery storage, an innovative solution to Ontario's energy grid problem. We're going to give you some background of the OES project, from the background of how it came to be, where we are currently in our status, and where we would need to go for our next steps. Then we're going to go into the review of our investment model, and we're going to use a tool called the Lean Model Canvas, which is a one-page summary or snapshot that you could use instead of a business plan to kind of just detail out your project. So it's really high level, and we can get to some questions or some details in that section. We're really going to identify what the problem is that OES is trying to solve and how we're going to solve it, what the project benefits would be for the Six Nations community and Ontario ratepayers as well as a whole. And we're going to go over our cost and revenue structure for the project. At the end, we'll have that question and answer period. So just to get started, we did set up a link tree. So you guys are able to pull your phones right now if you want, and you just open up your camera. You can scan that link tree. You don't even have to take a picture actually, and a link will come up on your phone. You can click on that. So the very first button on there is the review the OES project information pack. So that's an 8-page information pack that goes over this whole deal. If you wanted to follow along or you want more information, points that I'm referring to in this PowerPoint, you can get a much detailed data by clicking on that very first button. And I'm going to show you kind of what the other buttons do. So the first button will take you to the 8-page information pack, and you can access this using the QR code, which appears on our community postcards that we're going to mail out to each household, on the posters that are being put up in the community yesterday and today throughout the community. And so this is a great thing to know where you can get this data, so you can refer a family member or interested community member. They will also appear in weekly quarter page ads in the newspaper. So again, you can grab that QR code and you can send people to get some more information here. It will also appear in our Facebook events in our weekly community papers. So the second button down on that link tree will take you to our SN Futures website. So that website there is where we store all of our data for historical documentation for any projects that SNGRDC takes to the community. On that button, you'll see there'll be a summary, a quick summary of the project. But as you scroll down, you'll see this reports and resolution section, agreements, communications, and research. This is really where you can get that additional data that goes along with this presentation. So anything from the resolutions that our SNGRDC group has made in order to create this company, the board of the Six Nations Elected Council's resolutions that shows and reaffirms your support for pursuing this project, any agreements that we have with EnerStore, all the communications we put out to the community, as well as a great little 5-minute video from Jason, who's the president of Oneida Energy Storage, talking with energy media about benefits of this project. And then there's a lot of research. So the research are quite lengthy documents, and some of them we've pulled excerpts out of them. But if you want to learn more, please go check out our website. Also on this same platform, or by hitting the 4th button on the link tree, you can comment on the project. So if you want to submit a comment to be included in the project, you can just, this is what it looks like at the bottom here. You're more than welcome. Oh, so I guess my pointer's over here. This is what it looks like at the bottom. You can fill out your comments or ask questions in this platform. If that's not the route you want to go, you're not into filling out the online forms, you can also email us at info@snfeatures.ca. Okay. So we are having 5 of these webinars, 5 different dates. They'll have 1-hour time slots with a 15-minute presentation like you guys are receiving right now, with a live question and answer period with project partners. So EnerStore and SNGRDC will be active participants there. And there's the info email. If you guys, if you click the 3rd button, you can sign up for our webinar right now and register through Eventbrite. Alternatively, if that's not your thing, you can also email us at SN Futures. And then lastly, if you want project information as it goes out, so every time we do an FAQ once a week, we'll post that on social media. We'll also send it out through our SN Futures MailChimp account. The last button on that link, you can sign up for our newsletter and you'll get project information directly sent to you, including that final report. All right, so now that we know all of that and where you can get more data, where you can send people, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it all. This is a placeholder right now. I'm having a video developed. Josh is working on it to do a quick little 3 to 4 minute summary video, which is not quite prepared yet. So I'm just gonna go into a little bit more data. So first, in order to even talk about it, Oneida Energy Storage and really know why it benefits the community, why Six Nations should be participating and pursuing in it, we really have to understand how energy works in Ontario. So in Ontario, grid stability is regulated and controlled by the Independent Electricity Systems Operator. That's known as the IESO. The IESO secures electricity products and services on behalf of all customers, whether you're ratepayers or residential or businesses. And they manage the energy supply mix. They manage imports from other markets, demand response, and energy efficiency. And they do that through procuring 3 services: energy, capacity, and auxiliary services. So energy, which is the availability of electricity over time. Oh, sorry, I don't want that. Never mind. So this is an example of the grid mix on the right-hand side here. So you'll see they manage the delivery to residential customers. These are different types of productions, whether it's natural gas, renewable energy, solar and wind. They also manage the transmission grid to get it to all those businesses. Number 3 here is this new battery storage idea over here. And then also there's local grid distribution. So that could be rooftop solar, individual like farms or individuals who have rooftop solar at their houses. So quick overview. So how energy works. In Ontario, we have a lot of electricity supply. So that's our problem. Not really our problem, but we have a lot of electricity supply, but we often cannot use the energy because we do not have means and tools to efficiently and effectively store that energy. The amount of electricity fed into the electricity grid must also always be balanced to the amount of electricity consumed. And that job falls on the shoulders of the IESO. The OES project, our Oneida Energy Storage, has the potential to provide an on-demand, non-wired, controllable solution for grid balancing services in Ontario. So just to highlight in this section, the IESO is the customer for the OES project. And where we currently are is the OES project would still need to secure the 10-year power purchase agreement from the IESO, the customer. However, we have reached a point in our project where we've secured both federal and provincial interest, that we are in a position that we would like to update the Six Nations community, of course, SNGRDC staff, about this project, and of course, how we got there. So I just want to give you a quick example. So because Ontario, this is actually, you guys can get some live data on this if you'd like, by going to www.ieso.ca under power data. This is a up-to-date kind of interactive grid here that you guys can take a picture of. And what I'm trying to show you in here is that in Ontario, we have a lot of different peaks and valleys of our demand throughout the day. And those vary from day to day. So right now, the IESO has the difficult task of managing those peaks and those valleys to ensure that energy is constantly balanced, because if it's not balanced, we're at risk of having blackouts or brownouts. And they do a number of things to balance that grid. So I want you to point out that like during, and they make, so the green is an estimate and the blue is the actual. No, sorry, the blue is the estimate amount of energy they would use, and the green's actual what they made. So you'll see that there's space in the middle, a difference here. And that's energy waste. And this energy storage solution is going to help aid in that energy waste in that grid balancing service. So Ontario has a lot of electricity supply, but we cannot often use the energy because we do not have the tools to effectively store it. That means we're paying for power often when we do not need it, and at other times of the day or year might not have enough power supply to meet our needs. Currently, used energy is wasted, result of grid balancing services. So the IESO has to balance the grid, and they do that in three main ways. So agreements like curtailment, and we'll tell you what curtailment is, or regulated consumption. Dispelling surplus energy, which is selling it to a neighboring market or getting rid of it, and energy to the United States at a loss, or load shedding, which is the absolute last thing that they'll do, and that's where you'll see the rolling brownies that happen in Ontario. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to point out to you, and I wanted to point out the unpredictability from day to day. So on the 12th, the 9th versus the 10th, you will notice that these hills and valleys vary on each day. So that's a very difficult thing for IESO to manage. And this battery park will be able to level out and balance those hills. So battery storage is an innovative solution. Battery storage has the potential to provide clean and reliable power capacity to the Ontario power grid by drawing and storing renewable energy during off-peak periods and releasing it into the Ontario grid when energy demands are at peak. So this is, if you click on the supply version of this power data on the IESO's website, it takes you over here and it shows you that most of our base load is run on nuclear and on hydro. So I want to just give you an example of curtailment and show you. So let's look at the yellow. Let me just make sure I'm missing my notes. So this, so the OES will assist with grid balancing services to immediately meet the demand and supply that we experience every day and changes and fluctuates by hours. So to the right is a snapshot of the supply last week. Notice how solar and wind vary. So as a quick example, if we look at the solar, notice when it's used. So that's on January 9th and 10th. Well, they're weekends. And the time we use the hydro is different on the weekend than when we're using it during the week. So solar was put into the capacity mix, and the IESO was trying to make the best use of solar at that time, because from noon to 5 p.m., there's quite a bit of solar in the mix. And then if you look during the weekdays over here, there's less or almost no solar in the mix. Why is that? Is because what time of day we use power during Monday to Friday is actually like 5 to 6 p.m. is our big peak. Well, it's winter time. There's no sun being generated. from 5 to 6 p.m. So we're not able to hang on to the power that it made from noon to 5 and inject it into the grid right now. So this battery storage solution would basically grab that power all day long and then be able to eject it an hour later when the sun goes down, when customers are using that power the most. So what that means is solar is at risk of being curtailed all during the week. So what curtailment means is it's where the ISO is in agreement with these power producers that says, stop generating power, we have too much. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So right now, the ISO can use curtailment agreements to help balance the grid. However, these measures end up costing both the ratepayers and ultimately the environment. So what is curtailment? Curtailment is when we tell our dams to let water spill over the top, our nuclear generations to release their steam, our wind turbines to stop spinning, and our solar panels not to produce energy even when it's windy or sunny out. And it's an industry term that means the power was not needed in Ontario, it could not be exported, so it was dumped. An example of how they dump it, the first point on this here, it also appears on page 4 of your info packs if you were to follow along and hit button number 1 of that link tree. So gas, we avoid turning on gas plants for 1 or 2 hours, and they typically need a 5 to 6. You might have to turn them on for 1 or 2 hours, but they need 5 to 6 hours to run. That means there's 3 to 4 hours of wasted energy that's not being used, that's being made, and that's actually going into cooling towers or released into other means. So this would reduce, by using OES, we would reduce the cost and the GH, so the emissions that gas-powered plants produce. We can reduce the CO2 emissions by not having to turn them on, but instead being able to make use of that clean power. Wind reduces wind curtailment during surplus periods. We could provide fast responding ramps to address wind forecasts. Solar, hydro, nuclear, inertia. If you guys want to read more, these are in the info packs on page 4 if you hit button 1. So now we're going to move on. So that was kind of how energy works in Ontario. And our next section is the background, battery storage and innovative solutions. So we're going to go over the background status and next steps for OES. So unlike many existing generation assets and transmission lines, the power from the OES project, would be completely controllable according to what the electricity system and its customers need at any given time. The OES project could also serve as a pilot project for the IESO to determine future grid stability services that they could need. And an exciting piece of this is that it represents one of the first projects developed with an Indigenous partner in a development role from the very onset. So a lot of times, every project that SNGRDC has participated in, we've been for renewable energy, we've been a limited partner. So we've had very limited roles in decision-making processes when it comes to construction and procurement. This project has been developed very differently with Six Nations as a 50-50 partner from the beginning, making those key development decisions. And likely we are one of the first of this size to be developed this way in Canada, and really create an opportunity to allow for other projects of this size to be developed in the rest of Canada. So it's really exciting time. So the background of the project. So an MOU and a confidentiality agreement was signed with SNGRDC and EnerStore in November of 2017. So now here we are about 2 years later, and of all that time of developing this project, making decisions, moving the pieces along to get this project to happen, we are now in a place where we're presenting this to the community. So in June of 2019, the Six Nations Elected Council did have a resolution that said they supported the SNGRDC's Oneida Energy Park. Battery Park, and we also received same directives from our board of directors. At that time, shortly after that time, SNGRDC entered a limited partnership agreement with EnerStore to create the Oneida Energy Storage LP, and that happened in November of 2019. The majority of the year of 2020 was spent doing assessments and permitting. If you guys are looking for more detailed information on this background, again, on that info pack page, sorry, I just want to grab one. Page 2 has a much more detailed PowerPoint, so a much more detailed timeline. So this is just really high level. And then our plan is in 2021 would be our contracting and construction period for the OESC, with potential commercial operation happening in 2023. So some of the project highlights of this is, if this project is built, it would represent the largest battery storage park or project in North America, and it would be among the largest in the world. It has the potential to offer $400 to $760 million in net savings to Ontario ratepayers, so that's good for everybody. It would reduce 4.1 million tons of CO2, which is equivalent to about 40,000 cars off the road each year. It would create over 9,000 hours of local employment, with specific hours, hopefully with specific procurement for A6N. So a good majority or a portion of those hours will go to Six Nations workers. And it represents a project that has significant Indigenous ownership in a low carbon asset, which is really exciting because it aligns with our guiding principles. So who's this project being created with? We do have a development partner, EnerStore, who's our principal partner. They're an industry-leading energy storage project developer who provides innovative energy storage technologies and solutions. EnerStore is focusing on developing, owning, and operating industry-leading energy storage projects in partnership with Indigenous communities. They have progressive stakeholders and leading technology providers. So they were founded in 2012, and they're a privately held company. And their founder is Annette, who was the former CEO of Home Depot. And they are a leader in North America in energy storage, with several projects under contract currently with the IESO. And then, of course, there's us. So Six Nations is a leading Indigenous development corporation delivering economic impact within Ontario, having participated in the construction of $2.4 billion of infrastructure assets, including 892 megawatts of renewable energy. Six Nations is the most populated First Nation in Canada with over 28,000 band members. We do have a mission to achieve Autonomy 150 by 2025. As you know, that our main beneficiary of Six Nations Development Corporation is the Six Nations community of those 28,000 band members. This project here aligns with SNGRDC's guiding principles of respect for the natural world, future generations, and interconnectedness. And it's the first project that we have participated in as a developing partner. So to just let you know about the OES project status and our next steps, our current status right now is we are going to the Six Nations community for a commentary period. And that is publicly happening from January 25th to February 25th. In the meantime, there's some events, release of information, and that's to allow people to spend some time to look over some of our data, familiarize themselves with the project, and prepare themselves to ask questions. So information was released on Tuesday, January the 12th. Our commentary period will last for that month. And then in early March, a final report will be drafted and submitted to SNGRDC's group and the elected council for review and comment. That report will also be posted to the SN Features site. And if you are on our newsletter, you will have a copy of that emailed to you as well. In mid-March, there'll be the final report will be updated, or the development plan will be updated. and it will be either accepted by the SMGRDC and a decision will be made on the pursuit of the investment. And then after that, there's still some steps that needs to happen to make this deal a reality. The IESO in early spring will make a final decision to move forward with the OES project or not. And then they are what we are hoping for is a 10-year power purchase agreement from them. The Ministry of Energy will have to issue a directive to the IESO to allow that to happen. And Infrastructure Ontario, who currently owns the property in which the project is sitting, we would finalize a land lease agreement with them for the length of the project. And then our due diligence partner, Canada Infrastructure Bank, once the directives are received and we do have a power purchase agreement, then we'd be looking at finalizing some loan commitments with them in order to get the project off the ground. And then, of course, we would be working with Haldimand County and specifically their emergency services to share our development plans and our safety and our environment plans with them because the project will be located in their county. So I just want to pause again. I know I had a lot of data in there and maybe you want to learn some more. You want to grab that link tree again, you're welcome to just grab that link and follow along. So next, we're going to just kind of go into the project. We're going to use the lean model canvas, which is to the right here, to kind of explain the project. This lean model canvas, if you click the link tree and you go to page, or you go to push the first button, it is on page 3. So it's on page 3 if you're interested in following along. If you can't really read what that says, you guys are able to follow that way. Okay. So how the lean model canvas works is it's a 1-page summary of the project deal that I can quickly glance at this and I know what's going on is the intent of it. And it's broken into 2 parts. So when we look at it, if we drew a line right down the lean model, the left-hand side is the product and the right-hand side is your market, who you're selling it to. And it really focuses on solving problems. So when we look at the lean model canvas here, you'll see that we have 3 main problems that this project is trying to solve. There's lots of problems it's solving, but we went with 3. So there's renewable energy, curtailment, or waste. So right now, we have a very clean system. We have so much power in Ontario, but we curtail it and we waste it daily because we have no means to store it. We also have, that results in inefficient energy generation. So we have the potential to be making energy that, we could use during our peak times, but we can't because it's, wind is producing at nighttime when the wind's thicker and sun is collecting solar energy at a time that we're not using it because we're all at work. We're not at home from 5 to 6 in our peak period using that energy. And 3, we have a very uneven supply to meet demand in Ontario, and this presents a huge problem to the IESO to balance that grid system. And a lot of that balancing is manual balancing, which is very difficult and becomes increasingly difficult as time goes on. So this project has that solution. So the solution, or up here, the orange one here, is the 250 megawatt or 1,000 megawatt an hour facility that can withdraw, store, and inject clean energy into Ontario. Ontario's grid on demand, creating grid stability, taxpayer savings, and enhancing existing renewable energy infrastructure. So some of our key metrics, and how do you say how do we know that solution is good and worthy, is just below, and they're also kind of detailed up here a little bigger. Is we do have that ratepayer savings of up to $760 million that's going to be passed on to each and every one of us as consumers. It reduces the need for more transmission lines, so wired solutions to be able to get power from where it's needed to a different area. Less transmission lines means we're clearing the land less. We don't have to cut down the trees. We're not, taking up land space to add that wired solution. It will reduce energy curtailment. So we're going to maximize the uptake of our renewable energy assets. And actually on the Nanticoke transmission line, SNGRDC owns 3 renewable energy projects, or owns equity in 3 renewable energy projects that feed into that line. So it really has great value to us in other means. It also reduces the need for new plants, which unlocks grid efficiencies through demand response and energy arbitrage. And new plants means, yeah, less clearing, less all that as well. And we have a huge environmental benefit. 4.1 million tons of CO2 reduction is nothing small of amazing. And like I said, that's equivalent to removing 40,000 cars a year off the road. So that's our product. And then if we move over just to the next spot here, value proposition applies on both sides. So our value proposition here is that Ontario produces more energy than it's consumed, and Oneida Energy Storage has the ability to absorb all that extra energy during off-peak periods when it's rather cheap, and then return it back to the customer when they need it the most at a much lower cost than other resources can currently do. So a high-level concept of that is you can think of OES as a missing puzzle piece needed to unlock energy potential in Ontario. And not only is it that piece, but it's an all-in-one piece. So it can withdraw, store, and inject, where all the infrastructure assets that we currently have in our grid system do one or the other. I know where I am on time. I think I'm a little over here, guys. Sorry. I'll cut it down. So I just want to go into our cost structure. There is no cost for Ontario ratepayers to construct. A net incremental electricity system will be achieved from operations. I feel like this didn't get updated, Matt. But anyways, as in GRDC, depending on our partners, we need to invest as much as 20% of our own equity. Because we're development partners, we will shortlist investors because we are looking to secure other investors into this. We currently have an equity model of 50-50 with EnerStore. However, we would like to seek other investors in order to reduce our risk, which will also mean we'll reduce our equity share in this project. And depending on the partners, yeah, I'm just gonna go over quickly. If you want more details on this, it is in the info pack. We will work with the Canadian Infrastructure Bank so we'll receive additional equity through our investors. Our subordinate debt will be held with the Infrastructure Bank of Canada. And our senior debt, we will seek out a Canadian bank syndicate to basically finance that debt. And that financing will be backed by the government contract from the IESO. Again, details on each of these are included in the info packs. So now the market side, our market, and who we're really taking this to the market to is the IESO, is our customer. And we are presenting them with an all-in-one solution that, like I said, can withdraw, store, and inject energy into the grid. Our main unfair advantage that we have here is, unlike many generation assets, like transmission lines, the power from the Oneida Energy Storage would be completely controllable according to what the energy system and its customers need at any given time. Oneida Energy Storage can serve as a pilot for the IESO to quickly realize savings for Ontario ratepayers while informing how best to unlock more of these savings and values in the future. We would do this through a 10-year purchase agreement with the IESO. This project is shovel ready, and it's capable of reaching commercial operation after 24 months of construction. Yeah, and then we could just, the details there. In some of our early adopters that we have, you'll find all their logos at the bottom here. So we have gained some interest from the Ministry of Energy, Infrastructure Ontario, the IESO, Energy Storage Canada, and of course the Canadian Bank of Infrastructure. So our revenue structure, our ratepayers will receive savings of about 400 to 760 million. In addition to that, there's about $400 million in additional benefits with the economic development, job creation, and reduction of greenhouse gases. You can see how that's calculated over here in this chart. And based on our current modeling, the OES project will yield not less than $1 million over the life of the 20-year project. Also for our 6 stations, there'll be subcontracting and maintenance opportunities for A6N, which is our community-owned utility company. And through the operation phase of this project, so over 20 years, we'll create 15 full-time positions. And the project has agreed to create an internship training in order to train Six Nations or local people to be able to work within the OES project. So just quickly, where is it? How is it being used? This is a map of Jarvis here. So this is the corner of Jarvis just off the screen, I think. So currently there's the Jarvis transmission station. Our project would be the blue site here. I think it has changed slightly. This is not the most updated map here. And then right next to it, you'll see these red and yellow lines. This is the hydro corridor or the Nanacoke transmission line. So it's strategically located next to that transformer station in that corridor. The project is outside of the Haldeman track. It is outside of Plank Road land claim as well. And the property is currently held by Infrastructure Ontario, and it has been reserved for hydro grid expansion for Hydro One. Hydro One has consented to release that reservation for them. And we would basically enter into a 20-year land lease with options in order to secure this site for the project. So how do we respect for the natural, how are we holding our respect for the natural world? We are going into stage 1 and 2 archaeologist study, and it's 80% complete. We have engaged Six Nations Lands and Resources, as well as the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations to do monitoring. We have an environment assessment we are completing, and there was a previous one completed by Hydro One about a decade back. So in conjunction, those 2 environmental assessments will be done in due diligence. For sustainability and recycling, lithium batteries, which I think maybe everyone's thinking, hey, aren't those bad, are now 100% recyclable. So lithium battery recycling is now a huge industry capable of recycling all of the batteries. And the industry is working towards eliminating any future need for invasive mining for the precious metals they include through that recycling program. Projects will all have a maintenance and recycling agreement for 20 years with a 7 to 10 year horizon before any recycling will have to commence. Project team is developing a recycling plan for the project post 20 years. So, and that would basically be able to revert the property back to its original state. So our technology and development path is we have shortlisted our technology and construction vendors and have and A6N, we have agreed that A6N will undertake all subcontract efforts where possible. Construction can commence as early as Q2 of this year. And site maintenance would be awarded to A6N for a 20-year contract with that internship training to train people up for that site. How you can get involved is, of course, attend one of these information sessions. You can sign up for our writing campaign, which runs concurrent with the outreach, and review the final findings report that will be placed on the SM Future website. NSTOR and SMGRDC will actively participate in outreach sessions. We're going to have 2 radio interviews that you can listen into live and hear from Matt and Annette on the project. We also will be taking all the questions we receive and compiling them into a weekly FAQ, which again will be posted to our social media and sent out through SM Future's MailChimp. And we will record all key documents in the final report on SM Future for future reference. So if you have any questions for the presentation, it'd be please raise your hand if you don't want to be recorded.